Hi, everyone. Just to let you know, council is still in closed session. It'll be probably maybe another 10 minutes.
We had a closed session that ran a little long, so another 2-3 minutes, we ought to be up here. Actually, it's not as crowded as I thought it would be. Oh, oh my goodness. That. Oh, there it is. Good. And Jim? Good. There's the yellow.
Do you want me to go ahead and start, or do you want to wait for Joy?
No, we'll do it. He'll do it at oral.
No, I
comment.
mean, do you want me to go ahead and start the recording, or do you want to wait for Joy?
No, Joy is
Oh, she's
had
not-
an emergency.
Oh, okay, thank you. I didn't know that.
Okay.
Give me one
Let me.
second.
I will wait for your. Go ahead.
5, 4. Okay, we're all ready.
All ready?
Uh-huh.
We'll call this meeting to order. First step is roll call.
Yes, Mayor, I'll take the roll. Councilmember Schaefer?
Here.
Councilmember O'Hara?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Lyons is absent, and then Mayor Ehlers?
Here. And just for clarity, we called this meeting to order at 6:25. We apologize for the delay. We ran over in closed session. Next order of business is please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to item 4, special presentations and proclamations. We have none. And then number 5, we have oral communications, and I think we have 15 total tonight.
We do have 15 now.
Okay. So as I did before, I would ask that anybody queued up, please come up to the front seat so we don't have to wait for you to come up, and we can get through these quickly, and I can keep it at the full 3 minutes. So as you get called or you hear your name called, come on up. First person is?
Our first speaker is Jim O'Hara, then he'll be followed by James Morton, Trina Priest, and then Natalie Satoon.
Hi, it's unusual to address everybody from up here in public comments, but meeting with many of you around the community, being through the past 6 months or 9 months, whatever it's been, I've come to the conclusion, in this community, we need to heal. And as part of healing, I think it starts here in this room with us up here and with the 150, 200 people who regularly come here and listen to each other, converse with each other, and speak with each other. We come up to the dais and we have our 3 minutes. And I want to encourage everybody to act civilly to one another. Remember, we're all residents. We're all looking for the best outcome. When somebody says something that you agree with or disagree with, we want to listen to everybody up here. I know that's what Councilman Schaefer, Councilperson Lyons, and Mayor Ehlers are all doing up here and doing our best to do. And we want to encourage you to do the same because we think we can get the best outcomes with all of you involved. So I'm asking you, let's be civil to people. I'm not asking you to not express your opinion on things. I'm not asking you to not respond at the end of when somebody's speaking, but when people are coming up here for 3 minutes, let's give everybody the same courtesy, same civility that we all want for ourselves. I know we're a great community, and we want to stand out that way, and we can offer so much to each other. So please, within these proceedings, I just want to remind you guys how important that is to getting the best results up here for everybody here. I thank you for your time. I'm going to pass the mic off to the next speaker.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Today I'd like to talk to you about an article that came up in the British Medical Journal over a year ago. It may have brought some attention back then, and it's still something that's worthwhile in relation to our own public health and safety. As a pharmacist, I'm going to be advocating ways that we can reduce the number of medications that we're using to treat depression. And so I'll bring to attention this graph, and in your own reading, you can look the notation there in the British Journal if you want the further reading. But what this shows here at the very top is a number of things. It shows how the use of exercise in lieu of medications can really do a way to help people with the depression. So in this study, over 218 unique studies were identified, over 495 arms, and over 14,000 participants. The key participants in the retroactive studies were adults with major depression. And what stands out, if you look at the very top there, is dance. And when the publication shows up, you see very at the bottom of that list is SSRIs. So that's a standard antidepressant that's used. And so the moniker that was thrown around a year ago is that dancing is 100 times more effective than treating depression than any medication that's out here. I'll leave you some time just to look at that. I think another interesting thing that's called out in this is about 5 ways down, you see exercise plus the SSRI. And then you can look at just the SSRI by itself. And so it's a really nice way to go. So you got a lot of stuff on your plate, more things to think about, but I know the city does a number of things to encourage our residents to dance and be social, and just want to show that there's some good hard evidence that shows that's good work. So please keep after it. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice night.
Next speaker is Trina Priest, to be followed by Natalie Satoon, Tracy Conkey, and then Bernadette Diller.
Good evening, Encinitas City Council, Mayor Ehlers, and Happy New Year to our City Council members. I'm Trina Priest, a middle school teacher and a mother of 3 young adults. Since January is Substance Use Disorder Treatment Month, I want to shine a light on the role of marijuana consumption, which has an increasing cannabis use disorder and mental health problems for our young adults. Those experiencing cannabis use disorder are more likely to attempt suicide and less likely to finish high school compared with teens who have never used. Age 12 to 25 is an especially risky time to smoke, vape, or consume marijuana because the adolescent brain is still developing well into early adulthood. During this period, neural connections within adolescents' brains are forming, getting reinforced, or being pruned. The current highly concentrated THC marijuana products are essentially new drugs and profoundly affect teens' brains and young adults' brains and daily functioning. Parents and educators know that the city's 4 marijuana storefronts are very active on social media, enticing our young adults. And we know that 18 to 25-year-olds have the highest rates of serious mental illness and substance use disorders. Addiction is a pediatric onset disease, so preventing young people from initiating drug use gives them the best chance at fulfilling their potential. So you can imagine, as a mother and an educator, I am concerned about the already existing marijuana businesses in our city. Research suggests that when children and young adults grow up in a city with commercial marijuana enterprises, it mutes their perception of risk. And now we must cope with marijuana storefront signage on our public roads, especially the Wellgreens pot shop sign at Manchester and I-5. It is no surprise it's located at the intersection where students are traveling to and from Maricosta College. It would be a step forward in a world that bombards youth with messages that encourage marijuana use, that at least in our city, this and any future signs might come down. What a gift that would be for our city. Thank you for your time.
Hi, Natalie Satoon Cardiff. I have some images, all taken in the last 2 weeks, some today, and some are painted in the last 2 days that they were just painted. The current traffic lanes are not compliant or safely navigable on Santa Fe, some as much as a foot less than the required 10 feet. Scott Campbell met me to measure. We took 14 or 15 measurements. Our zoo from engineering later met us and measured as well. Out of all of them, only one measurement was DOT compliant. When I emailed the findings to the city, Jennifer Campbell relayed that Tri-Group would be notified and required to submit a plan to grind down the new striping and restripe in a few discrete areas. My concern, 14 out of 15 non-compliant areas are not a few areas, and this should be urgently addressed as it is a city liability. Another friend and I measured the eastbound concrete curb to the westbound curb, and there's not 30 feet for lanes. For those of you who do not know, the 10-foot lane also includes the gutter where your tire is flush against the concrete curb to the middle of the lane striping of the median. You're literally mirror to mirror with a car in the median. How was our city engineering staff not aware that the lanes were not to code? Literally, a software engineer, doctor, vet, and accountant brought this to the city, and now 3-week-old striping must be ground out to further deteriorate our asphalt that's already in deplorable condition. We need immediate city oversight and remedy. Instead, we're painting curbs that need to be repainted 2 days later. They were just done. Another note, a longtime elderly resident was arrested last week for being in the travel lanes. She was warned multiple times to use the sidewalk but refused. Our deputies are being berated for simply trying to prevent her from being killed. They're not trying to abuse her. This failed design flaw is not their responsibility, it's the city's. As drivers, we don't want to take her life. At least 20 people have come forward with a near-miss story. She's not the only person in the travel lanes. With the reverse angle parking, once landscaping is installed, every person who parks is required to use the travel lanes. The Tri-Group supervisor confirmed so the other day. The 2 11-inch curbs behind the spaces that you have to straddle 3 feet will no longer be accessible, so everyone will have to exit on foot into travel lanes. In 2024, Captain Watts confirmed 3 DUI collisions and 9 DUI arrests on Santa Fe, possibly more pending a software conversion. We have multiple EFD responses daily. As you can see, traffic lanes are so narrow that cars do not maintain the lanes, and there's no room for emergency vehicle egress when all 3 are in use. I can't comprehend how this flawed design was approved and questioned aspects of local public safety. Last week after the fires, I made a public records request to find out when our former mayor last cleaned her property of the dead foliage. My PRA came back that her property was last inspected April of 2024 and deemed compliant. This is an inferno awaiting. Has our city set the bar so low that the condition is not considered a fire risk? Suddenly, the Dudley Santa Fe approval made all sense. We don't grasp what public safety is, and we're more prepared than LA. I'm asking you revise city safety standards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. So this is a continuation. I'm just here. So there's a continuation for the
If you can
Rosini Canyon. For the
Face the
Rosini Canyon.
microphone, yeah, so we can get you on tape.
Okay, so there's supposed to be a continuation of the photographs of the Rosini Canyon.
I think it played while
there's
Natalie
another-
was
I think-
speaking.
Warren, there's some separate, though, from Tracy. There should be another presentation. Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it went through a whole section with Rossini Canyon in there. Did you want to go back to that and replay it?
I'd like to replay that so that people could really see how awful the situation is at the Rossini Canyon. Also, as well, I'd like for them to see them first.
Okay.
There we go.
No, hers was.
So as you can see, there are many, many canary palms that are dead.
And I think you can start the clock now. Okay, good.
And it's been aware for the last 2 or 3 years that these trees are there and that they're just a situation waiting to happen, and it hasn't been addressed. And I was speaking with my boyfriend about it, and he looked at these photographs, and he heard that they were ready to have a cleanup party this Saturday to clean these up, and that they're renting a wood chipper. And he looked at that and said, there's no way renting a wood chipper is going to take care of all these palms, because it's not going to be a professional wood chipper. And as well as these palms have massive, what are they called, stickers or
Thorns.
thorns, thank you, on them that are just horrible. And I can't imagine all of these people that don't know what they're doing trying to clean that up. So that's all I had to say.
Okay. We can't respond to oral comments because it wasn't agendized. All we can do is, I think both these items have been put to the attention of staff, and that's what we can do here.
Okay, thank you.
Next speaker is Bernadette Dillon. She will be followed by Ellen Burr, Scott Campbell, and then Mike Conlon.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor Ellers. I'm here because that is bad, but the fireworks that were going off, illegal fireworks, going off Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, for the last 20 years, these people fire off fireworks. They don't care about our citizens. They don't care about our area. And right now, we are 3.48 inches in a shortfall in rainfall, which means we are in what they can call a severe drought. If a firework was to go awry and end up in those palms, we would have a massive fire. The area along the I-5, right where Carl's Jr. is, off of Santa Fe Drive, that whole area there that circumvents a Seacoast Community Church, a storage place, a retirement villa, and storage, and then you get to the San Diego Humane Society. If that were to light up because of the fireworks being shot off at Seacoast Community Church in the rocks, there would be devastation. With winds and a lot of other palm trees, if you just drive through and see your neighbors' yards, they're brown. Their backyards are brown. We are a fire from Cardiff to Leucadia. All of our canyons have no water in them. And all it's going to take is one firework to set it off. And literally 10 minutes before I came here tonight, on Gardenia, people are setting off fireworks.
Oh, wow.
They fire them off all year round. It's not just necessarily Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, but they're doing it to celebrate a wedding, to celebrate graduation. And by the time you call 911 and our wonderful sheriff go out there, everybody's gone. I found out from Councilmember Linz, we have a drone. And I'm asking the city council to use that drone to crack down on these illegal fireworks before we do turn into the Pacific Palisades. Because it would not take much for anywhere in the community for a backyard, a palm tree with 10 feet of debris hanging off of it to send embers everywhere. You have the area near the San Alejo Lagoon and Miracosta. That's just ready to go. And the people that live in the country villas, they would have little or no warning if that canyon went up behind them. And a lot of these are senior citizens that would not get out of their house in time. I'm asking for the city of Encinitas to increase the penalties for getting caught with illegal immigrants and attaching possible jail time. Thank you.
Good evening, council. Two quick things. I have seen Luigi. I've seen him twice. First time I saw him, though, there was a guy walking about 15 yards ahead with a blower, so I'm not sure about that situation. But that's okay. I've seen him. He's back. He's working, I guess. But mostly I'm here to encourage anyone who is interested in RENA vis-a-vis the city of Encinitas and affordable housing to read the report that is going to be presented to the Planning Commission tomorrow that has been prepared by Commissioners Sherrod and Prendergast. It is better than most of what Scott does lately. So you don't have to go to the meeting. You can watch it on TV, online or whatever. If you can't do it, but I would highly encourage you to read that report. It's really good. Thank you.
I don't really need to do this. Okay, good evening, council. My name is Scott Campbell. I live in Encinitas District 1, and I've just got a couple observations for everybody here. The first thing, what is the purpose of the city? Why does it exist? It's to protect the citizens and the neighborhoods. We're a suburban village, not a manufacturing center or a tourist hotspot. We're going to talk more about this in the future. We heard about Santa Fe Drive. I went up there and measured it. A lot of those lanes are not even 10 feet wide. Seriously, I mean, this is not lane diet. This is anorexic lanes. And what those videos didn't really show was your tires are literally in the gutter. And when your tires are in the gutter, it pulls to the side, and it's just really not safe. I hope that there's something that can be done about this. Now, that segues into Vision Zero. And we saw a bunch of slides. They went really fast. It looked like there was a high number of incidents. As a layman, I have to think those incidents are related to the current design of the road. And I think that the old road had less incidents. So we need to look into this and reassess and possibly redesign and rework. That's a standard practice in engineering. If it's bad, you fix it now, you don't wait. On August 21st, you had a meeting about the street dining barricades. And the direction was to direct staff to develop requirements regarding standards and maintenance associated with murals. So my first question is, what's up with that? I look forward to hearing about this in the future. I know you can't discuss this. I mean, you can, but that takes a little, there's some Robert's rules and things like that. So I'm looking forward to this. It seems like it's dropped off the radar a little bit. But what other projects have we got going on? We talked about Santa Fe. How are we doing on streetscape? I believe there are some penalties for performance if we don't complete this by June. There's a 3-year or 2-year, we got a loan guarantee. We waited a whole year to start the process. If it starts raining, they're gonna stop working. I'm not even bringing up Lake Lucadia. I got that on my phone. I should have made it some stuff. There's just things to think about for you guys in the future. Nothing too negative, just positive things that are gonna be happening in the future. And like you said, it starts here. It starts here right now on this podium. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Mike Conlon, followed by Michael Fremont, Donna Westbrook, Dee Chrisman, and then Brian Stone.
Hello, Council. My name is Mike Conlon, and my sculpture, Wingman, was chosen as one of 2 sculptures to be exhibited for the 2-year period by the city of Encinitas. I'm pleased that my sculpture was chosen by the people of Encinitas to be exhibited as part of the loan program. I'm honored to participate in the program, but I feel that there are some burdens for the artists that need to be addressed. I get that the issues I'm bringing up will not have any bearing on my participation. The money has been allocated and it's a done deal. I'm bringing this up for the artists that will participate in the future. I have two concerns about what I consider to be unfortunate aspects of the program. The first is the requirement for the artist to secure a $1 million liability insurance policy. I understand the need for a liability policy, but putting this burden on the artist really eats into the money allocated to the artist. The total stipend for the 2-year loan of a sculpture is $4,000, but only $2,000 is paid up front. The 2-year liability policy I was able to find cost $664, which is just under 1/3 of the $2,000. And the $2,000 isn't paid when the sculpture is delivered, it's paid after 30 days. So the bottom line in my case is that the stipend amounts to about $3,300, not $4,000. I have to believe that the city of Encinitas has an umbrella liability policy and could easily add a rider at minimal cost to cover liability. My other recommendation is that the city provide a nominal insurance policy, say $1,000 to $1,500, against damage to the sculpture while it's on exhibit. If somebody spray painted my sculpture, which has an intricate painted surface, I would end up losing $4,000. If Encinitas wants to be known as a city that promotes art, it needs to treat artists like they matter. Artists will be drawn to participate if they feel like the city values them, not just their work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I have a couple of subjects I'm going to touch on very, very quickly. I'm a longtime resident of Encinitas, seen it grow. I live in Cardiff now. I'm particularly interested in having Cardiff finally underground, which is available. CPUC 2028 programs that the city of San Diego is very aggressively going after. It is a safety issue. I'm also have changed my thoughts originally of what I was going to talk about, considering the fires in Pacific Palisades. The majority of the voters of Encinitas rejected the tax increase that you wanted to put on and the county tax increase, which is a rejection of your vision, your streetscape vision, because that's where a lot of the money was going. Because of the fires, I think that the city should reconsider what traffic needs to be done. You have 4 east-west corridors, you have 2 north-south corridors. These need to be remained open and free flowing for traffic. Birmingham, where I live, is a particular problem because the freeway overpass obviously isn't wide enough. They don't have traffic lights. Why that wasn't included in the freeway expansion is beyond me. So we're talking about safety issues. We're talking about looking at, and Santa Fe especially, that everybody hates. McKinnon is horrible. So I think a lot of the people, I think that the city council is on the same page about what traffic for safety reasons, for fire reasons, for emergency response, why Santa Fe was done the way it was, by restricting traffic that it has with the hospital on the other side is beyond me. So those are really my remarks. The last part is this. Freedom elections are on the attack. Why you have chosen to appoint a member of the council for District 4 vacancy is beyond me. It should be an election because the people in Leucadia deserve a representative of their interests, not the council's interest. And I think the council found that out because 2 of the people that the council appointed did not make the election. There are 2 new council members because the appointees were not elected. Thank you very much.
Donna Westbrook will be followed by Dee Chrisman, Brian Stone, Sheila Cameron, and then Mark Maville.
Donna Westbrook, Encinitas. I'm especially concerned about Santa Fe. It's more than just a strange thing that happened. It's a safety factor from the way they put in their planters, which is why you put in planters along Santa Fe. Who knows? It's convergent on who decided they wanted to do that. But at this point, it needs to be ripped out and put it back the way it was. The whole reason why they started this was because there was an accident and a death down by El Camino Real in Santa Fe, a long distance from Santa Fe in front of the high school. So what you have now is that there's landscaping going in. And I thought at the last, or one of the last meetings, that the staff was told to stop whatever they were doing. Well, apparently landscaping is still on the schedule. And if you do not take that stuff out, then you're going to have to take it out later. Besides the amount of cement that's stuck in there, but I can't imagine why anyone would decide how they put the planters and things in. But if you don't stop this now, and that includes landscaping, it's not just the lights above or the traffic lights. Stop the landscaping, stop whatever they're doing. I mean, completely stop, so that instead of waiting for 6 months to see how it looks like, this is not a good situation. I mean, the first thing you can do is say no more landscaping, and then start taking out some of those cement planters. I don't know, it's the size of a small house. So now you've got planters when you're trying to make a turn there, which is beyond me. Actually, I think maybe it would help if we did have the names of the people who decided that plan. Because as long as we know who they are, they will not be hired again by the city. But please do that. But stop now. Tell them stop completely with the landscaping, and tell them, please no striping or restriping, and start getting rid of the, let's call it crap right now. And if you don't, then, I don't know what else to say, but honest to goodness, this is so bad that anybody who would look at it would shake their head and wonder what was wrong with the people in charge. And unfortunately, you've inherited it. It's a bad situation. No more landscaping. Thank you.
Dee?
Brian Stone, Sheila Cameron, and then Mark Maville.
Jim O'Hara, super glad to see you here. So I'm going to beat a dead horse here for a second. I agree with everything that woman just said. I live off of Santa Fe. I was a professional tractor trailer driver for 36 years. Oh, wow. Little tiny me. The first time I saw what they were doing on Santa Fe, it was so apparent to me that you were not going to be able to drive a tractor trailer down that road without interfering in the middle lane. Those planter boxes stick so far out into the road. I don't really comprehend why they needed to be so deep, why those parking spaces need to be so deep. All I can think of is that we tailored it to Sprinter vans. If somebody wants to park a Sprinter van somewhere, they can find another place to park it. I can also tell you that my mom lives in Leucadia. She lives right down from the Starbucks. We were one of those families that had to suffer through the bad choices that previous council members made by allowing that Starbucks to be built. My parents' house caught fire. The fire department is literally across Leucadia Boulevard from my parents' house, and they could not get to my parents' house because of the traffic that was on Orpheus of people trying to get in and out of. So when I'm looking at what's happening on Santa Fe Drive right now, in my brain, all I'm seeing is that there's a hospital right down the road that fire trucks are not going to be able to get to and from at certain times of the day because there are so many people dropping off their kids, going to Bobby Riggs to play pickleball, which you do whatever you want. But the point is that that's impacting the rest of us, the people who have to live there, the people who, I now have bus drivers coming down my road and coming down Wood Lake because they can't make the turn onto Bonita from Santa Fe or onto Windsor from Santa Fe. They have to go into oncoming traffic to do it. So now they're coming through my neighborhood and going down Wood Lake and then coming down Windsor, so they've got a straight shot across Santa Fe to get to their bus parking lot. So I was here at the last meeting. I listened to the fire chief say that his drivers were not having problems. Well, I call BS on that because I run up and down that road every day and I've watched it happen. So I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but this is a new council. This is a new mayor. You guys have it upon yourselves to correct something that was not right to begin with and that should never have happened. So thank you.
Brian Stone, I live in Encinitas. I want to thank Councilman O'Hara for his comments. Thomas Jefferson's mantra was, we disagree, but if we do, we disagree as rational friends. President Bush 41 emphasized that civility is a choice and urged us to become citizens, not spectators. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg further emphasized we can disagree, but not be disagreeable. I asked the City Council to restore civility and decorum to these proceedings. Many individuals diligently watch these meetings online, but only submit their opinions electronically due to the fear of being subjected to outbursts and disruptions from the public gallery. Senator Blakespear, Natalie Satoon, Marco Gonzalez, and Scott Campbell, among others, are entitled to speak without disruption. All of us have the right to participate in these meetings. There's ample case law supporting a city's right to enforce rules of order or a code of conduct at its meetings. Notably, in the case of White versus City of Norwalk, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld the city's authority to manage its proceedings when speech, and I quote, disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of a council meeting. This right lies with the mayor or a majority of the city council. I request that you exercise this right not to stifle speech in this limited public forum, but to encourage the robust and sometimes challenging discussions that will contribute to the betterment of our city. I hope you exercise that when necessary. Thank you for your time.
Sheila Cameron, Lacadia. My subject is fire. We have to have learned something and gotten some idea from what happened at Pacific Palisades, Altadena, and La Jolla, Maui. I have a few thoughts here. I think that we need to have an evacuation plan for the entire city, and we need to coordinate with other cities on this. And one of the things is, I suggest the fire department be very involved in creating this. Canvass neighborhoods, know all the ins and outs of the back streets so that people can get out. Coordination with NCTD buses and trains to be at the ready and involved if there is an emergency. They need to have plans to coordinate with ourselves and other cities as well. What is the status of our water reservoirs and resources? How much longer before the reservoir in Del Dios, where we get our large percentage of our water, is 100%? Because I think they're still working on that. It looks pretty low. You just came out of a San Diego Water District meeting. It was all about money and budget. I suggest very soon you have one that's all about water resources and accessibility. I think we need to involve surfers, the Coast Guard, to help people escape by sea. Pacific Palisades fire came all the way down to the ocean. In Lahaina, Maui, people jumped into the water to escape the flames. Citizens and families need to personally take action by packing up important papers, plans for their children and other family members to know where to go and how to meet up. Have your medical supplies, update your insurance for home, auto, health, providing you've still got home insurance. And leave your keys in your car if you have to abandon it. Don't worry about it being stolen, worry about it being burned to a crisp. So think ahead and just be ready. The Red Cross used to put together backpacks with all necessary supplies for people to survive for 48 hours. I don't know if they're still doing that, but you should call the Red Cross, or you can put it together yourselves. Please donate to the Red Cross, they're always there. And lastly, traffic. Are you driving around on the streets lately? I mean, it's bumper to bumper, a lot, several times a day. So we've got to figure out something. And I know that fire has to approve every building, every project here. And I think that they may want to reconsider how they go about that. I love the firefighters, don't put me wrong, but they can't rubber stamp everything because we've complained over and over, one way in, one way out on a lot of these projects, and they're going, it's okay. I disagree. Thank you very much. This is why I don't sleep at night.
Final speaker is Mark Maville.
I hesitate because I got a lot to say here. You guys gave me too much time to think. Anyway, Mark Maville, I'll address you guys, like you said. Got several things here. I'm going to do a little bit different, like a questioning and a report for what's going on out there. Got to hand it to the sheriff. INS came in, swept all the Nicaraguans out based on assault at least 4 times over in that area of Cottonwood Creek. And I had enough of it a couple of days ago, called them, gone. So that situation no longer is an issue, including families, at least maybe 40 or 50 of them, bye-bye time, pre-Trump rollout. So as far as, let's see here, I've been hit by a car, survived that one. At least 12 close calls. I can address just about everything that people have talked about tonight. The cannabis huts, yes, we have to revote. Sane development, the collusion of those 4 developments under one developing company, that's it. Blake Spear went ahead and had that Bellevue. That's going to be a green belt. That's what that should be, not built like that. All of that, since you're short on park space, you just make it that way. Just take your head out of it. This rep here without the lawyer on their side here, that was not good. Cameras in the parks, no eyes there physically, then you have eyes in all the parks for the sheriff to help them determine what's going on out there, rewind the tapes. Let's see here, outside dining, it's gotta go. It's gotta go. I mean, it's slowly but surely, they're just moving off the street anyway. Let's just help it along a little bit and just the square footage, raise it to a point where it is no longer palatable for them. And they're gonna have to do something about it. And it doesn't help anybody. They've got, you know, the al fresco dining or whatever, that's all you get. You're not gonna get both options. And it's limited anyway, so COVID's kind of not here anymore, and there's no more excuses on that one. Let's see, Cardiff train stop, I was hoping that maybe we could look at an ability to maybe develop a train stop there. It could be put in. They just bypass Cardiff when it would be very easy to have the train stop there and then go on to Solana Beach. You guys can consider that. The AA meeting that we've been working on, I'm ready. Bruce is ready. Both Watts and Mayor Eilers both have the same mindset, thank God, for once here. And the things are getting done. The leak that was at the rock quarry thing that I mentioned to Bruce, fixed. That's how quick he took care of that. So you've got a very effective mayor here, and he's proactive.
Thank you, Mark.
And one last thing, I'd really like to see the minutes to 3 to 4 so everybody can empty the tank and maybe go from 30 to 35, because I just need a lot of time.
Thank you. Okay, next item, that was last public, right? Next item is report from closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City Council met in closed session at approximately 4 p.m. Ultimately recessed out of closed session at approximately 6:15 p.m. While in closed session, it discussed 4 items, all of which are listed on the special closed session agenda. The first item, closed session, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation authority, Government Code Section 54956.9, Adams versus City of Encinitas. This was a workers' compensation appeals board. These are workers' compensation appeals board cases. There were 5 of those cases, 5 of those matters listed. As to all of those matters, the City Council met in closed session but took no reportable action. The next item was closed session, conference with legal counsel, significant exposure litigation. There are 3 separate cases under the authority of Government Code 54956.9, subsection D. The first case, the Riverwatch, exposure litigation, was a Riverwatch matter that was a threat of litigation by the Riverwatch Group to the City of Encinitas, and the City Council took no reportable action while in closed session on the Riverwatch matter. The other 2 pending matters were also under Government Code Section 54956.9, subsection D, significant exposure litigation, and while in closed session, the City Council took no reportable action on those items either. Present in closed session for the majority of closed session were all 4 members of the City Council. Councilmember Lyons had to depart closed session, so she was not present for the last 2 items in closed session. And that concludes the closed session report.
Thank you. And City Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the posted agenda. However, there was a correction to the 12/18 City Council regular meeting minutes, and that was on page 28, and it was just to change a word from committee to communities.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we move on to item 8, consent calendar.
No items have been removed by members of the public.
Wow. And so I'll entertain a motion unless anybody want to pull anything on the consent calendar today?
Yeah, I'd like to pull item 8D.
Okay. And so let's handle 8A, B, and C. Can I get a motion to approve consent calendar items 8, B, and C?
Motion to approve 8A, B, and C.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll second it. And with that, we'll call the question.
And motion carries unanimously with Deputy Mayor Lyons absent.
Okay. And with that, we'll go on to item 8D. Do you need a staff report?
Yeah, predominantly this is about hearing the staff report with a couple of small questions after.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Ben Stryker, Senior Engineer in the Engineering Department. Oh, thank you. Item 8D before you is the acceptance of the Beacons Beach parking lot reconstruction project and the filing of the notice of completion. I just want to take a minute here and just sort of give an overview on the typical CIP project construction phase council actions that every project kind of goes through. We start with design immunity and authorization to request construction bids. This is sort of the handoff from the design phase to construction phase. The project's gone through discretionary approvals. There's been some sort of citizen participation plan meeting or other community meetings to take an input, and it's council approving the design, the final design. And for Beacons Beach, that happened June 12th, 2024. Then we undergo a formal bidding process. We come back to council when we've analyzed all the bids and found the low, responsive, and responsible bidder to request, the authorization to award that contract. On Beacons, that happened August 14th. And then finally, where we are tonight, after the project is constructed as approved per the plans and specifications. We request authorization to accept the public improvements, file the NOC, and begin project closeout. So for Beacons Beach, all of the work has been completed to the satisfaction of the city engineer per the approved plans. The public has taken beneficial use of the site. Cars can park there, sidewalks open, benches are there, fencing's there, everything's there. So now is the time to file that notice of completion per the public contract code. Just a couple before images here. As you can see, it's a parking lot, a pretty typical sort of ADA compliant sidewalk, pretty rough shape, asphalt's in pretty rough condition. This is now after construction, new asphalt, new wider sidewalks, and you can kind of see that old fence line running along there. So we've moved, substantially to the west, to the east, and installed some new fencing. So a few other things just to note. After the notice of completion gets recorded, we will release what's called the payment bond. This is a bond against the contractor in the event of non-performance during construction. As soon as the work is done, we can release that bond. And then it triggers a 1-year warranty period, and that protects the city against poor workmanship or defective materials used during construction. So after a year, we'll go out there and check for those sorts of things, and we can release what's called the performance bond. And that's sort of the typical process, and I'll end it with just our recommended actions and happy to answer any questions.
Oh, sure. So questions as far as this closeout. This is part of the reason I wanted to hear about this is an item that we obviously, like many of the items we're going to see come across the next few months, we inherited. So I was eager to get the opportunity to ask you questions about it and to get the full report on it. Wasn't clear in the report, do we come in over, under budget? Where were we? Do we have to make any changes along the way?
So at this time, we are under budget. We will not be needing to request any additional funds. Part of this project closeout, there are still outstanding invoices that need to be paid, and things like certified payroll documentation from the contractor, final releases from subs and suppliers to make sure they got paid. But at this time, it's anticipated to come in under the appropriated budget.
And is a 1-year warranty standard practice in the industry? And is there a way to get it, and for future projects, obviously this is done, to get it extended longer than that? This is something we're going to live in for however long it's there.
The 1-year warranty period is established by the California Public Contract Code, and that's typical standard for all public improvements.
Super. And getting into the build of it, how does something like the January 2024 bluff failure affect this project, or if in the future, how would it affect this project?
Sure. I'll pass that off to Jim, but just point of clarification, this project, no element in the parking lot reconstruction did any sort of work on the bluff itself. There was no stabilization element to the project. This was purely just shifting the parking lot over, but
correct. As I understand your point, it was brought back to the fault line. That's how you got to that point.
Precisely, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mayor Ehlers, council members, Jim Knowlton, principal engineer and geologist for GeoPacifica. I've been your geotechnical consultant for many years. I'm always informed of any bluff failures by the lifeguards, and I immediately assess its severity or make an assessment for either assigning it, cording it off, or whatever. I was informed about the bluff failure at the toe of the Beacons landslide. It was the result of the king tides and erosion at the base of the bluff, and basically a minor sloughing at the toe of the slope occurred. It was in no way related to the work that was performed by the city.
And so with the subject of bluff stabilization, does a project like this affect our future ability to stabilize the bluff through whatever means? I know there's a study out there that has several options. Does this completed project affect that study? Do we need to redo it? Does this affect that?
The study that was performed for the stabilization of beacons, this failure does not affect the idea and the plans that we're going to perform for that stabilization.
Sure. I'm asking if the project that we're talking about completing affects that stabilization. I understand you're explaining that the bluff is not affected by that. I'm just asking if the project itself affects that study we've had done already.
No, it does not.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, I had one question more back on the notice of completion. Can you bring back up the aerial? I think it's an easy one, but I just want a clarification. I can see the landscaping you put on the northern boundary, and looks like substantial, looks like it'll grow in nicely, I'm sure. I can't quite see what happened. I know there was the neighbor to the south was concerned. We took out some old, probably needed to be pulled out just because it wouldn't have survived the work. What was planted there? I don't know if you have a photo, but did the project as we just completed, does that include a significant revegetation there that will grow into the proper car headlight block is really what we're looking for here, and sight block?
The short answer is yes. And what was planted there, and unfortunately I don't have pictures, it's California rosebush. Okay. And then along the western edge, kind of past the fence line, there was a sort of a whole array of different plantings that were selected by the Parks Department. On the south end, California rosebush was selected because it's thorny to try to discourage people from going over there, and they grow fairly tall and act more like a shrub. So that'll fill in very nice. It's my understanding that this is the time of year they're dormant, so right now it just sort of looks like twigs in the ground, but as the weather gets better, it'll grow in there. And then, yes, there are some more shrub-like material on the south edge down here to help screen headlights.
And then 100% of the work you did was on our property or state property, correct?
100%.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions from anybody? I'll entertain a motion.
I motion to approve. Great project for Encinitas.
Okay.
And second.
Okay. Got a motion and a second, and I believe we can vote.
And that motion does carry unanimously with Deputy Mayor Lyons absent. Takes us to item 10A.
Okay.
And do you want me to read the procedures?
I've got it. Okay, so we have procedures for an appeal hearing as what's the type of meeting? A public,
It's a public hearing to consider the appeal.
Yeah, but this is different than a standard item in front of us in that we go through the disclosure. So there's a process. I was trying to remember what the name of the type of meeting was. So the first step is we'll have a report from staff. We'll then ask, the second step will be to ask council to disclose any other information they have received that was not included in the staff report. We'll go through a round from the council with preliminary clarification questions, not really deliberating. Then I will open the public hearing. We can hear first from the appellant and for 10 minutes, and they will have a presentation that includes any representatives of the appellant, such as attorneys, engineers, et cetera. Next will be the applicant going for 10 minutes. where they will have similar presentations. Then we'll have the public speakers, and then followed by 5-minute rebuttal by the applicant, followed by a 5-minute rebuttal by the appellant. I will then close the public hearing, and then the council will deliberate and take whatever action. So with that, we will start with the staff report.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Esteban Dana. I am a senior planner, and I was the project planner for this project. Okay, the project site is located along the east side of El Camino Real, just north of Garden View Road. The Camino Apartments site was previously known as Site 6A, which was included as part of the city's 2013 to 2021 housing element update. The application requested a density bonus and design review permit for the construction of a 4-story, 87-unit multifamily apartment building, which included 75 market rate units and 12 very low income units. The Planning Commission considered the application on October 17th, 2024, and approved the project. On October 28th, 2024, the city clerk received a timely filed appeal of the Planning Commission's approval. Let's see. The first reason for the appeal is in regard to migratory birds. The appellant disagrees with the project's approval without the establishment of a mitigation plan for migratory birds. A biological technical report was prepared by Helix Environmental Planning Incorporated, which analyzed the site's characteristics as they relate to its ability to support wildlife, including migratory birds. The report asserts that the site is nearly surrounded by existing development and does not serve as a regional wildlife corridor or a substantial habitat linkage that would be used by large mammals, riparian birds, or migratory birds. The site contains trees, shrubs, and other vegetations that may provide suitable nesting habitat for common birds, which are protected under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act and the California Fish and Game Code. The report memorializes the project's compliance through a specific project feature that requires pre-construction surveys for nesting birds during the nesting season, which is from January 15th through September 15th. Compliance with the Migratory Bird Treaty Act and the California Fish and Game Code is required by federal and state law. To memorialize federal and state law requirements, a condition of approval has been added to the draft City Council resolution. The second reason for the appeal is related to the removal of 2 existing Torrey pine trees. The appellant states that there is a lack of evidence that the 2 existing Torrey pine trees are not naturally occurring. The 2 Torrey pine trees that will be removed to accommodate the project are located on a manufactured slope and are not naturally occurring. City records show that the original grading and landscaping plans for the site includes the ornamental planting of Torrey pine trees on the eastern slope of the project site. The biological technical report confirms that the 2 Torrey pine trees are located on the manufactured slope and are not naturally occurring in their planted locations. The project landscaping plan, as approved by the Planning Commission, proposes the installation of 4 to 5 new Torrey pine trees. Staff recommends that the City Council deny the appeal and adopt the attached draft City Council resolution affirming the Planning Commission's decision to approve the density bonus and design review permit. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, but first, let's go to disclosures and see if any of the council members have disclosures.
No disclosures at the time.
Nothing to disclose.
And I, too, have nothing to disclose. So now we can go to preliminary questions. Any preliminary questions? Yeah, I think I'm good, too. So with that, we will move on to opening the public hearing. I'll let the appellant go first, and I believe we have a video. The appellant is not actually in chambers, but provided a pre-recorded video presentation, or audio presentation, sorry.
Esteemed City Council members of the City of Encinitas, thank you very much for allowing me to make this appeal and voice presentation of my case against the development of the apartments on El Camino Real. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, I had to travel and be away for a business conference that prevented me from being here in person today. Before I get into the merits of the appeal, I want to tell you a little bit about my experience with me learning about the development and the appeal process that I underwent. I only learned about the development the day before it was coming to the Planning Commission for approval. And I was traveling at the time. Therefore, I had very limited time to review the documents and to make a case during the presentation at the Planning Commission for my points of disagreement. During the Planning Commission hearing, I was devastated by the lack of importance that I perceive coming from a number of the planning commissioners that were hearing this case. The lead or head planning commissioner was dismissive of the concerns of two of the other commissioners, and several times made the point that the city has a mandate to build and therefore the project should be approved without much scrutiny. A couple of the planning commissioners made some attempts to question some of the requirement exemptions that the developers was requesting, such as the percentage of 3 in the property and a couple of others, but ultimately decided against making those a requirement and gave the requested waivers that the developer was requiring. During the discussion, I also heard one of the planning commissioners say something along the lines that she would expect that the people that live in these apartments along El Camino Real would be using their bikes to commute because they were along El Camino, therefore easing one of the concerns related to traffic control caused by the new development. This lack of care, this lack of attention, lack of seriousness that a planning commission body gave to a development completely shocked me and completely, frankly, disgusted me. After I reviewed the documents and decided to appeal, I was also unfortunately short on time. I just happened to travel quite a bit for work. And I based my appeal on a couple of findings of the biological report that the applicant provided. I am going to discuss those technical merits in a second, but I want to tell you that during the appeal process, I was not notified by the city of Encinitas about the status of my appeal until I inquired and I met with the planners. I was then notified at the time that the planner failed to inform me of the decision and other processes. I started a communication with the city who suggested that I reached out to the applicant. I had no intention of reaching out to the applicant. I had no need to reach to the applicant for the process. However, the applicant decided to reach out to me. He contacted me via text, and I replied to the applicant. The applicant told me that he had found my phone number in my application, and that also the city had told him that I had met with them to talk about my appeal. The applicant requested, and I agreed to meet. We had a cordial conversation in one of his developments here in Encinitas that lasted for about 45 minutes. He shared his view of the development proposal along El Camino Real. I shared my concerns with him related to the environmental safety mitigations that the biological report asked for. And everything was pleasant until the end when the developer threatened me by saying that if if this body, if the city council decided to do something stupid, he knew what to do, implying that he would probably invoke some legal action. He also foolishly tried to school me on his knowledge of planning and how only planners have the ability to emit opinions on what is the proper planning for developments. So my experience with the planner was actually less than optimal. I certainly wouldn't feel comfortable working with this person, and I wouldn't feel comfortable with this view on any developments in our city. So very poor opinion that I was left it after I met with him. In regard to the two points that I submitted in my appeal, I've seen the counterpoints from the attorney and the response from the applicant. I don't have a response against those. In regard to the tree being planted dead purposely in a graded part of the terrain, the city claims that they have found that there are records to that extent that show that the tree was planted. In regard to the concerns for the safety of migratory birds, I understand that federal law requires that there are mitigation procedures in place for when the applicant develops the site, and I understand that there's a willingness to put that as a condition of the application. I don't have any other basis that I included in my appeal, and I haven't had a chance, honestly, to really spend more time on this because, again, unfortunately, I was traveling last week internationally. I have to travel today across the state, and I was traveling 2 weeks in December. So it has been very difficult for me to really be able to find the time as a citizen to appeal. I just want to end by saying that what I repeated during the Planning Commission hearing, and that is that I've always been looking forward to having this site being developed. And I also mentioned, and I told the applicant when we met, that I think it's a beautiful rendering, it's a beautiful set of buildings, but that they don't really belong there, given the architecture that he's proposing. I expressed my concerns related to the congruency of the El Camino Real corridor. He suggested that people want to see a building mass abounding the street, to which I disagree. And we left it at there. So my concerns that I did not include in my appeal have to do with the appearance of the building, the aesthetics of the building, have to do with the traffic that these buildings would cause in the community, and also have to do with the way that the front of the building is designed, making it look like a fortress. It's just not a very inviting aspect or facade to integrate the community into the property. I recall now that I did have a conversation with the applicant about the possibility of making it more open, having areas where people can sit, a bench, some trees at the front, even think about having a coffee shop there to invite citizens to be able to sit down and enjoy that part of El Camino. I believe he responded by saying that the city had some rules and regulations that prevented him from doing that because of the pool that he's planning to have on that side. With that being said, I want to thank you all for listening to this appeal. I trust that this body can examine the merits of the applicant's case I trust that this body knows much better than I do what are some of the concerns and what are some of the potential impacts that this development may have in our community. As I said, I'm happy that this place is being developed. I just would like to see it developed properly, taking into account the right mitigation
You can cut it off.
programs for
He's at his 10 minutes. I think it went another 10, 20 seconds. I can see from the timer. So, and with that, we'll listen to the applicant.
All right, good evening, Mayor and council members. Brian Grover here, representing the applicant for the Camino Apartments. I'll just respond to a couple of the things that I just heard. So I reached out to Ruben Flores, I forget the day, but I had spoken with Anna Colamusi, who told me that she had had a meeting with him and that he wanted to discuss with me in person. And I hadn't heard from him for 5 days, so I saw his phone number on the appeal paperwork, and I texted him. And he responded, and I said, do you want to meet up for coffee? Do you want to have a phone call? He went away on a business trip, but eventually he got back to me, and we got together. I didn't threaten him. We met for about 45 minutes, talked about the project. We talked about the items that are the subject of his appeal, of which there are 2. And we talked about a bunch of other stuff, which I just heard in the video, which we discussed also at the Planning Commission hearing. So I'm just trying to go about this process in the right way. I wanted to listen to his concerns. We heard some of his concerns at the Planning Commission hearing. I heard a lot of those when I met with him in person. But the reality is I'm focused here tonight on responding to the 2 items that he appealed our project on. The rest of the discussion was had at the Planning Commission hearing. I'm happy to answer any of those other questions tonight, but he appealed us on the lack of needing a nesting bird survey, and also on a question about whether or not that Torrey pine was naturally occurring or was planted as part of a grading project. You just heard from the staff report. I agree with that staff report. I also included that in our applicant response to the appeal on the subject of just to summarize, on the subject of the nesting bird survey. That's required under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act anyway. Every project I've ever worked on, we do a nesting bird survey within 48 hours of construction. And on the topic of the Torrey pine, it was my understanding, and you can ask your staff, your planning staff, that Ruben had sat down with the planning department and gone through both of those items, including aerials showing what that portion of the property looked like in the 80s and the 90s, in the early 2000s. When I sat down with him in person, he said he couldn't recall. But I said I was happy to share. He should just let me know if he wants to see those aerials, and I never heard back. But you can look at the grading plans or any aerials. I'm happy to provide those. So again, I'm just trying to go about this process the right way. We answered all the questions of the planning commissioners. I'll answer any questions here tonight. But I believe, under common law, and I guess I would defer to the city attorney, I'd really like to just talk about the 2 items that we were appealed on, and not this other stuff that he's talking about that we've already vetted through the 2.5-year process that we've been on, traffic, architecture, et cetera, because it wasn't a part of the appeal. But I'm happy to discuss it if you like. So that's all I have. Thank you. Oh.
I've got one question. Anybody else have a question? Why don't you go first, Jim?
Go ahead.
You want me to go? Okay.
Yes, please.
Let's see. Now I already forgot. I know. The Migratory Bird Act requirement, we understand that's already in force in law outside of this agreement. I noticed in staff's recommendation there is an added condition, which is basically, I think your attorney used the word duplicative, which is fine. You don't have any problem with that, correct?
Happy to accept it.
Okay, great. That was my question.
I was interested to know that before the bluff was created, the original Torrey pines were replanted. How many trees were there prior in that space?
Before that slope was graded in the mid-90s?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know the answer to that. All that I know is that we're displacing 2 Torrey pines on the site, and we're replacing those with 5 Torrey pines as part of the project. But
Sure.
I don't know the prior developer how many trees were displaced.
I see that here. I also see you're only replacing 30 out of 58 trees per our tree code, so that you can maximize the build out of this project. So I am curious to know if we're saying, well, they weren't there when they built the slope. What was there before we built the slope? If we're just going to go back to that main piece, and then we're going to say, oh, 30 out of 58 trees, and maybe that falls to the city to tighten our regulation on our tree ordinance, figure out how to do that. I know this has to do with bonus density. I'm just going to say it, 30 trees out of 58 replaced is pretty disappointing, especially when we're talking about 2 Torrey pine trees, saying they were placed there, but we don't know what was there before. There could have been a grove of trees there before that slope was put in, correct? So we don't know that. So I'm just
Can I ask a
pointing that out.
clarifying question
Yeah.
for your point? Are you talking about when it was originally graded back, prior to this owner, graded back in 1990? Or are you talking about their wanting to start grading and take out the 2 trees?
Prior, when it was originally
Prior,
graded.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, yeah.
We don't have that information. And if we're going to say, well, there weren't any trees there, we're replacing 2 that were planted there as decoration, well, maybe there was 50 trees there that were put there when there wasn't a tree ordinance to protect those 50 trees.
Yeah.
I don't know. And so it just is a point of something to point out, I guess.
I lived there. I mean, I lived just up the hill from there when it went in. There were no groves of trees there. There were a few. Scrub oak was about most you get. You can see it up and down. And in fact, other projects on that same slope, there were it used to be that Green Valley was farmed up the hill a little ways. So there's a potential that it was farmed, and a good portion of it had no trees or nothing on it. But
we don't know.
I just remember, I mean, I used to mountain bike down those slopes, and I don't remember any trees in that area, eucalyptus or otherwise, right in that area. And I literally lived 4 or 5 blocks up.
Just pointing out that we don't know.
Okay. But, well, let's keep going. We're going to hear from the public and get to deliberation. So any other questions for the applicant? Okay, so we'll move on and go to public speakers.
First 3 speakers, Donna Westbrook, then Sheila Cameron with one-time donation from Julie Gerboy, who's present, followed by Sandra Anderson.
How many total?
And then the last speaker is Scott Campbell.
so just
So we
4.
have 4.
Okay.
Donna Westbrook, Encinitas. Well, we're here to see how Blakespeare changed our zoning. That's a commercial zone. And what she did was to put a residential zone of 30 over a commercial zone. She couldn't do that, and she knew it. Unfortunately, it was put in with the other batch of 15 to make it look like she knew what she was doing. And if we go ahead and allow this to happen, we are changing our zoning because of her. And if you want to change the zoning, you're going to have to do a Prop A. You have to put it out toward the vote. And even though you said that the court said just get it done, get this approved, guess what? You can't just change your zoning from a commercial to a residential. And that's what the developer wants to do. Now, instead of talking about some of the things on the, as far as the, on the appeal, there was no discussion, or apparently there was a discussion, but see if you see under what was brought to you as an appeal that talks about the original and what it is as far as zoning. Because I was always told that if you couldn't build on it, then it reverts to the other zoning. Well, that's if it's residential. This is not residential, it is commercial. And commercial, even in our general plan, if you wanted to change commercial to something else, you're going to have a vote. So this requires a vote. If the developer wants a vote of it, then fine, go ahead, let him pay for it, and let's just check and see if people want our commercial property changed to residential, because that's not going to fly. At any rate, at this point, there are other problems with that property, and he knows it too. But the thing of it is, we're not going to change our zoning because Blakespeare did it. An R30 over commercial doesn't fly. You're going to do it and change it, then it has to be a vote of the people. Just make sure it goes to that. And if there's a question, I think there's probably other ways to work on this so that he doesn't build that 70-some units of apartments. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and two council people. Nice to see you. Okay, first of all, in defense of Ruben Flores, he was a planning commissioner, so he knows his stuff. And he appealed on two things, and there were other things that I felt were important as well. I support him on the migratory bird routes. That is something that really needs to be looked at. Some of these birds are probably protected, and I don't quite understand at what point they're going to look at this because they haven't done it at this point. Brian, can you explain that to me? And the two Torrey pines, who plants Torrey pines? They don't. They're naturally occurring. They either pop up. You know, I don't know of anybody who plants Torrey pines, so I think they are naturally there and they should be protected. Did I hear they were going to replace them with 5 Torrey pines? If that's true, fine. But you know, I'm kind of tired of us becoming treeless around here. We do have a tree policy and a maintenance policy, and one of the things is to protect any mature trees on property that's being developed. And apparently we're losing sight of that. And the first people who should key into that are staff, and they ought to tell anybody who comes in to develop right away. A few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, this was considered a wetland. Now it isn't. Is this voodoo politics or what? I don't understand it. But it was considered a wetland, and we went round and round about that way back. So I think that's another problem. I also heard that there's a bumblebee situation there, and I don't know if there's a lot of beehives. I don't know exactly. I don't know the details on that. But bees, you know, we're running out of them, and pretty soon, you know, we won't have fruits or flowers. As far as the design goes, what a disaster. The developers met me one-on-one because they had their first CPP meeting here, and I was the only one who showed up. I don't know if they didn't notify the rest of the people, or they couldn't get over it was dark night or something, but I was here, so I was very expressive about the fact that the design looked like something that might do well in Las Vegas, but didn't look good here. The swimming pool, I don't know, I didn't like anything about it. Brian's heard this, he knows that. So, and I made it clear, I told the architect at the time I didn't want to insult him, but I thought he should go back to the drawing board and start over. So I guess that's mostly what I have to say. Ruben did say he didn't feel it integrated well with the community. Certainly not. It sticks out like a sore thumb, like where the heck did that come from in our community? It's 4 stories. I don't know. And the whole shape of it. You know, we haven't seen any pictures tonight. I'd like to see a couple pictures up there, photographs of this project so that everybody here sees what it looks like. Do we have those? I'd like to see them. And I'd also like to see the pictures of the Torrey Pines trees. I assume they're part of the package. Hello?
Yeah.
Anybody?
You're addressing us, and
Yeah, I know,
we
but
have
I'm
to ask
looking at
that.
them because they got to come up with it, and they're not moving.
Well, actually, you have to talk to us, and then we can direct them to
Okay,
show
well,
it.
direct them, please, to come up with
I
the
will when you're-
photos of all those things.
I will when you're done.
I think everybody needs to see this project because it does not belong there. Measure U did not pass by the citizens. You've tried to explain to me how they still got away with it, and I don't understand it yet. But all the zoning that they changed, putting residential and commercial, et cetera, it wasn't voted on. The people voted against all that. So all these 15 projects they're doing, as far as I'm concerned, is illegal. Okay, I think that's about all I have to say. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Who's next?
Followed by Scott Campbell.
Okay, my name's Sandra Anderson. I live in Encinitas. I was not planning on speaking tonight at all, but listening to this, I had to speak up. And I have to speak up about, guess what? Parking, 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 parking. Bruce knows all about it. You two new council people maybe don't know, but parking, it's all about parking. So I want to bring it up, okay? I don't currently live in this neighborhood. I used to many years ago, but I don't right now. But I just have a concern as a citizen that I do not want that neighborhood to have the influx of cars and problems that our neighborhood has had because of an apartment complex, the lack of parking that they have to have, and the number of people that are living in these apartment complexes and all the cars that come with them, okay? So I'm pretty sure that if this development happens, I'm about 99.9% sure that parking overflow is going to go into that neighborhood, okay? And I think that needs to be brought up to everyone's attention. I also want to make the point that Fox Point Farms is not completely developed yet, and there is already complaints by citizens about the parking overflow that's going into their neighborhood, okay? So that's all. I know they get certain rules to not have enough parking spots or whatever, but I just can't, it just breaks my heart to see another neighborhood. I used to live there many years ago. It's a wonderful neighborhood, and I hate to see it be ruined by the influx of cars that I can guarantee you are coming from this apartment complex.
All right. Okay, my name is Scott Campbell. I live in Encinitas District 1. And disruption can be positive also. So let's stick to the substance of this appeal. And there was 2 points, the migratory birds and the trees. And in the written, I don't even know the words for it, in the written response for the applicant, they specifically say there was no mention about migratory birds at the Planning Commission meeting. Quick research shows they talked about it 6 times at the meeting. So, you kind of got to, what's the rest of that statement? What's the truth level of that? I got to discredit that. Now, there's also a written comment trying to press the strategy of fear. We're in the throes of a housing crisis. This is going to decarbonize the whole world with this one project. We're going to reduce the displacement of existing residents into homelessness. These are outrageous statements, and please disregard those. It's sad that this has to come down to the public trying to protect the environment. Now, let's go back to the trees. I don't know the date of these trees or when they were planted or whatever. Torrey pines do grow. Birds eat the seeds. Plants grow. The staff says that there was a report and there was a study in plants from 1987 and the 90s. That was 35 years ago or so. Nobody actually has come up here and said, I planted those trees. To claim that those plants aren't equal to trees. Anybody could have put those trees in. Now, on top of that, I talk about it's a disturbed area. What is the definition of disturbed? At what point in time does land become not disturbed? Because really, we could say the entire city is disturbed, or the entire county or the entire state is disturbed. If anybody walked on it and made a trail, that's disturbed. So once again, this disturbed thing is, once again, it's a bogus claim. Now, what's a win? Let's take a win out of this. There's 2 mature trees, semi-mature trees. I don't know how tall. Nobody's even talked about how tall these are. They're going to take them out and put in new ones. Let's make a deal. Let's leave them in there and not have to take 5 out of the new ones. I mean, you have the power to do this subtle math. That's a win for everybody. The trees can stay. We don't have to have a big butt about the new ones. I'm trying to help you out on this a little bit. I'm officially neutral on there. This is one of the least objectionable of the housing element projects, unfortunately. You're going to make your decision. We tried to give you some information. I'll see you later.
We do have one additional speaker, Mark Maville.
Okay, if I fully understand what's going on here, sane development, I think, is one of the number one priorities. This appeal, or whatever the heck this guy's lying about, if you didn't read it or weren't aware of it, why are you talking so much about it? You know exactly what's going on. It sounds like an excuse, not a reason for being naive, I guess, about what's going on. Blake Spear was responsible for the 4 developments. The developer's handling that's collusion. Developer rep over here trying to sell you on the thing about Bellevue and no lawyer present. There's a lawsuit right there because they could slam and subpoena everything and then everybody's in trouble. I've never lost in court and I don't think you should either. This homeless thing or apartment deal or affordable housing nonsense, spreading it around, you need to cluster it and keep an eye on it. That's where they're going to congregate in affordable housing. It'll be a couple people that are making minimum wage, and everybody's got to contribute to make sure they pay that $3,500 or whatever it is per month. It's ridiculous how expensive things are here, and they can't afford it. And you're going to have that element, and the crime, and the homelessness, and the sober living crap that's not even transactionally correct. It's not legal. I was in sober living. I know. You go there, you have chores, you get tested, you're supposed to have curfews, get a damn job, don't be wandering up and down the street with a needle in your arm, and a safe house for you to continue to do your drugs. That neighborhood has been affected, and it needs to stop, and you got to shut that down. So as far as affordable housing or this appeal or whatever it may be, all it's going to do is bring headaches. That's all it's going to do. You're not helping the community. The city of Encinitas does not need that element. It's negative, by the way.
Mark, if you can keep it on the subject of this project.
Okay, this project should not move forward. It's just another way of these guys that are greedy, developers trying to get their money. And that's what this girl was here that one night with a resident coaching her on what to say and whatever was going on between the two of them.
But that was
is
a
bunch
different
of crap.
project.
But I'm just saying, here we go again.
Okay.
So it's irresponsible, it's careless, and it's bye-bye. Make it a green belt, Bellevue, green belt. You need park space, but no more of this clustering, no more gross versus net and all these other little stupid excuses. The gross you can't even use for anything. You got the net, she goes from 6 to 11 to 23, and one guy's up here, put 300 houses on that little lot. Boy, you're out of touch with what's going on here. And maybe I'm out of touch. I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing, I've been through the fires. I've been through the 03 thing. I know what's going on there. So
Thank you.
A benefit, not a liability. And thank you, Bruce.
Okay. And that
does
concludes?
Public speakers.
Okay, so next we will have, do we have a rebuttal by the applicant? 5 minutes?
All right, thank you. Again, Brian Grover here representing the applicant. So I'll just start with Councilmember O'Hara. You had some questions about the number of trees that were there before the grading happened in the 90s. And my thoughts on that are we're the standard of review that we're subjected to. There's an environmental baseline, and that's what we have out there today. And so that's what we analyze, and that's what we submitted through our biological technical report. So I just wanted to address that. And then from the public speakers, just responding to some of Donna Westbrook's comments, we the applicant, we're not changing the zoning. We actually didn't even own this property before it was rezoned, which happened in 2019. I understand the complications and that a lot of people are upset about what happened in 2019 and the way that these sites were upzoned, but we didn't purchase this property until afterwards. It was put out for bid. There was a broker. A lot of people bid on the property, and the group that I represent was the one that ended up purchasing it. So it all happened afterwards. There was no collusion or anything like that. So I just wanted to address that. Responding to Sheila Cameron's comments, Sheila, you asked me if I could explain the nesting bird survey. So again, a nesting bird survey is a very typical pre-construction requirement. We call it out in our biological technical report. We talk about the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, and we talk about nesting bird surveys in our biological technical report. And we talk about how one is required, and we would do one. It just didn't make its way into a condition of approval for the Planning Commission hearing, which is what I think the appellant was calling out, which is why I'm amenable to including it as a condition of approval here tonight. There was also, regarding the Torrey Pines, Torrey Pine is a common tree that we include in landscaped areas. A lot of the projects that I've worked on include Torrey Pines as part of the landscape palette. Again, we're replacing 2 with 5. There's no obligation because those 2 aren't naturally occurring, but we wanted to include Torrey Pines in our plant palette anyway, along with sycamores up on the slope. And then I don't really have much to say about the parking issues. We're parking per code. I don't agree with some of the notions that there would be off-site parking from residents, but it's not really the subject of the discussion tonight. And then, yeah, responding to the last speaker, I didn't come here with my team. I don't have anybody coaching me. I'm just here to answer questions. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, do we have, let's respect the process as Councilmember O'Hara asked earlier tonight. Do we have anything from the appellant as far as a statement for rebuttal? And since they're not here, so we'll move on. And I will now close the public hearing, and we can have council deliberation. Either one of you, if you can't get in the habit of using the buttons, it's helpful to me. Thank you. Councilmember O'Hara.
I just wanted confirmation from either you, since you're familiar with Prop A or Tarquin. This doesn't fall to Prop A, as my understanding, but since it's been brought up, I would like to confirm it one way or the other.
Correct. This project does not trigger Prop A.
Yeah. And anything else? When you yield? Oh, boy, where do I start? I want to go to some factual issues first. First is on the attachment number 7, page 11. If you could bring that up, I think it would be helpful. This shows the as-built for the property after it was graded back in 1990. And this happens to be the landscaping page that shows that they planted 5 24-inch box Torrey pines, 31 15-gallon Torrey pines, and 24 5-gallon Torrey pines. So the likelihood that there are 2 left over from that planting that was done after the grading, yeah, this page. So, at the very top there, it's kind of hard to read. It says PIN, TOR. That's, Pinus Torreyana or whatever the Latin is. And then over on the right side, there's another 5 24-inch box. So I think this was evidence that established to me that those Torrey pines were planted as part of the grading, and that they should be replaced, or it could be replaced. But I agree with the applicant's comment about the pre-existing condition is what you have on the ground, and this shows me that they were artificially planted. So now my next question is to staff, what law says that differentiates between artificially planted and natural? If it had self-propagated there from a Torrey pine down the street, would that be treated differently? And under what law?
Sure. So the Native Plant Protection Act, so that's Section 1901 from the California Fish and Game Code, says that the native plant means a plant growing in a wild, uncultivated state, which is normally found native to the plant life of this state. So that is the California Fish and Game Code, yes. That
Okay,
addresses
and where
that.
it says growing wild, that's what we're using for the differentiation between an artificially planted versus one that it's self-propagated into place.
That's correct. So there's evidence that these were planted through this 1987 plan.
Yeah.
And it was concurred with the biological technical report as well.
And so far, I've seen no evidence from the appellant in opposition to that.
None was presented.
Okay, great. Yeah, Mark, if you can, quiet. Let's see. And then how do we treat, like we've had to take out much more mature Torrey pines on El Camino Real, further south down towards, I'm trying to think, the project was the senior living facility, and we did and those were artificially planted by, I believe, Herb Lux a long, long time ago, and they were huge, and we replanted them in that project, 3-to-1, 5-to-1. It was, so what's the history as far as treating Torrey pines and similar projects within Encinitas?
Yes, we typically would rely on our mature tree policies within our general plan. And once the climate action plan came along, we have the 1-to-1 tree replacement. And so we are able to require that 1-to-1 replacement. But before that, it was relying on the mature tree policies that we have in our resource management of the general plan.
And then as far as a mature tree ordinance, where we go down from the general plan's policy and goals, what do we have for mature tree ordinance?
We don't have them, but it's coming to
Okay.
you very soon.
So, and this had a priority, a deemed submitted date back in 2022. So the laws in place that day would be the ones that apply now.
Correct.
Okay, great. The consideration that the wetland is, let's see, I'm trying to get the words, that none of the native vegetation sites, quote, are considered a sensitive natural community under the Fish and Game law. Do we have evidence from Fish and Game, a letter or anything that says they looked at it, evaluated it, and came back to us and said, yeah, you're right, this is isolated, it doesn't qualify as a sensitive habitat?
So the staff relies on the biological technical report for that information. Typically, there is correspondence between the wildlife agencies and the city when there are CEQA documents that are being issued. In this case, this is not a project subject to CEQA, and therefore there is no correspondence between the agencies and the city.
Could we in the future, could we ask for these type of letters, even though it's not a CEQA project?
Yes, we can. It's not typically practiced in that manner, though.
Okay. And is there any evidence to the contrary that it is considered by Fish and Game a sensitive, and I want to get the term correct, a sensitive natural community?
There is an email that was sent to the applicant from the San Diego Regional Water Control Board that states that they did not deem that portion of the project site as a wetland.
Okay, so that's actually in the supporting the biological report that was paid for by the applicant supports that. Is there any evidence that we've seen or heard that is contrary to either of those two points?
Not contrary, no.
Okay. Let's see. I think I had one other area. I think I already covered the migratory plan when I asked a clarification question from the applicant, and it's already required by other law, but we will now, as a function of tonight's hearing, if we go forward and approve, we would add a condition of approval that would duplicate the same requirement. I always like to remind people that just because you put it in a condition of approval, it doesn't get enforced all the time. The famous one I remember from 20 years ago is the Home Depot actually has a prohibition in the conditions of approval against merchandise out front. And first time, 22 years ago, when I was on Planning Commission, our Planning Commission chair brought that up 2 or 3 times in front of the Planning Commission, and we can never get that enforced. So beware. I love the fact that there's law in place, and I love the fact you're willing to have that there, but, and that's why I'm for duplicative laws. I'm okay with that, because sometimes some of these don't always get followed up on properly, or they're hard to enforce. So just as an example. With that, let's see. Okay, with that, I'll yield. So, Councilmember Schaefer.
Thank you. You said, real quick, for the staff, you said that there's evidence of that these were planted. What is the evidence?
So the evidence is a grading permit and landscaping plan from 1987. That this is the landscaping version of that plan.
With the left side being El Camino Real?
That's correct, yes. And let's see, the project site is this portion, and then on the next page, I'm sorry. Or the
When you say this portion, slow down for us, and
sorry,
so we can see
yes.
your cursor.
Yeah.
Actually, I can show you a version.
So
that
people
I-
on the video can follow too.
Yeah.
Yes, actually, I prepared a joined plan that shows both sides, if you bear with me for a second.
So then also, can you point out where the trees are currently when we do this?
So this is the 1987 plan, and the green lines represent the project site. This is the manufactured slope that was permitted under that grading permit with the landscaping proposal. And
the big circles are Torrey pines.
Those two, the green ones there. So they're in the same corridor.
Right,
That
so
it was already planted.
correct, and this is the pre-construction condition right now. These are the plants that are on the site.
Copy.
And the green highlights are the 2 Torrey pine trees that are the subject of the appeal.
Gotcha.
And I thought I saw the package provided that as built. In other words, the stuff, attachment 7, I think believe shows the as-built grading and planting. And it shows essentially the same information you were showing, but had as-built, showed the Torrey pines, showed that there were, close to 60 total planted over the entire site. So there's probably 10 on this parcel, these parcels.
That is correct. The attachment 7 is what these plans are.
Thank you. At this point, it's more of a statement to the public and to where we stand. First of all, is the applicant or the person representing the applicant has made promises to the community prior about parking not being overflowing. So the previous ones have already shown to be overflowing. And to sit here and say that it's not going to overflow could be a bold-faced lie, as a current project being built right now is overflowing fact. So that needs to be addressed, and I think to some level, I think if that project, the previous project I'm talking about, didn't have the parking issues, I think it would be a flagship for the city, because it does provide an Encinitas look. It provides everything that we want in Encinitas. It provides some shopping on site, it's some entertainment on site, and farming on site. So I just don't think that to sit here and to, like Mayor Ellers said, Home Depot, we drive out there in front and they have a ton of stuff out front. And there was a rule, there's a stipulation in place, and that they weren't going to do that. Well, guess what? They blew right past that. And for us to sit here in this phase and to expect that that's not going to happen again, after we're seeing it happening currently, and it's not even fully to capacity. So that's one thing. The other side is, I think we have to sit here and look at current events as what's going on. in the state of California and predominantly LA. I do believe, my personal opinion, I will not say certain words, but I will say that I do think that our ability to emergency respond while we're need to do an assessment of our city, I do believe that delaying all developments until we have that time and the research that we're expecting back from our staff that are underway is the prudent way to do business. Because if we sit here and look beyond of what's happening right now, and I guarantee the lawsuits coming out of LA are going to be many. And so I'm just saying that in this time right now, because as we start, there's more projects coming, it is pertinent that we, I believe, delay approving anything until we get a full report on the status of our city to not only respond to our own issues, but to the issues of the surrounding cities that would drive other quote-unquote refugees to our city. I think it's an absolute importance. So
can you bring it back to this?
Well, we're talking about the approval of this project.
Yeah.
So adding more weight to an already burdened system is asinine. It's absolutely beyond comprehension of safety. And our first and foremost to our city and to the current residents, not future residents, is safety. And if I don't say it now, then I'm going to be held responsible for something I don't say here and now.
Yeah.
I believe that we're acting in an unsafe manner if we don't delay all development until then, period.
And does that help you, or can you make the findings necessary to?
I need the research
support
from our
the
staff
appeal.
who has hundreds of years combined of experience and our lawyer down at the very end to do their findings to make that. I don't have that because I've just been here for a month. But I don't have the findings for this exact project, but for all projects. So I need that personally. I need to see that full report. I need to see where we stand on emergency response, not fire, because we have to also remember, I've said this before, we're also an earthquake danger city. So the fact of the matter is, if we don't take a look at our 100% of our emergency response to include our EOC, where it's located, which is currently here, but we may need to put it further west because people have been driven, like we said, up north. They are jumping, or in Maui, they're jumping in the ocean.
Yeah.
And that's to a current fire. But again, we have other issues and other responses that we need to be responsible to. So again, not the purview of this specific appeal. So
That's
under this
exactly my
case,
point.
under this case, well, it's the purview of adding more weight to a burden system.
Okay.
That you can't overweigh that. That is our job from a global perspective. So if we're going to sit here and overlook that because of 2 Torrey Pines trees or whatever the current appeal is, then we're not doing our job. So that's my point. Safety, safety, safety. I need to see the full ramification of where our city lies before I can make a judgment on any development going forward. But that's just my opinion. I'm done.
Okay. Councilmember O'Hara.
I share every concern you have, and I'm sure that all of these things were things that the Pacific Palisades felt they had covered as well. To your point, I think you're 100% accurate. This meeting is one of many meetings that we're currently inheriting as a council, be it a good project or a bad project, an overgrown project, underplanted project, be it a developer who maybe had threatened the city in the discussion with one of our residents. That is not what we're appealing here today, and that's not what we're allowed to look at in this. Otherwise, I would look at all those things adamantly. And I do think we as a staff are looking to do that going forward, and I know there's been discussion among the staff to do that. And to the point where we have to step back in this instance and look at what are the bases we're being asked to appeal this on. And I want to bring the conversation back to that, as much as I believe you are 100% correct in your view of the dangers and risks of everything going on.
Yeah. And I agree. And just like we did with Santa Fe, we slowed down to speed up. And that's kind of the same concept here. That was your words, Bruce, not mine. There was a concept that by slightly taking a little bit extra time to really take a deep breath and just see what the ramifications are without tearing down anything, because it's already been built. We're not going to tear it down. But to slow it down, and I'm not talking just like we did with Santa Fe, 5 months, 4 months. We delayed the building materials, but we understood that by taking a deep breath and seeing how it lives, by taking all the stuff down and letting people drive it without all of the red tape up, which, again, citizens have gone out on their own to measure this, our own work, to show where we are lacking. And I think it's just, it's applicable across the board. So for us to just hold tight to 2 appealable items is minimizing the greater good for our greater city. So if we don't stop right now, I mean, we're talking about lawsuits from builders or whoever else. They're going to get lawsuits from the city, from our citizens. And that's a greater travesty than a developer, in my personal opinion, even though the developer has a lot more money, and that's the real problem.
So tonight, we're kind of in a unique situation. We're already down 1 council member, and with another one out, we're down to 3. It takes, to do a positive action, it takes 3 of us. So whatever, in order to deny the approval, or I should say support the appeal, we would take a positive action of all 3 of us. Should any one of us decide not to do that and basically support the Planning Commission decision, we're going to be at an impasse. And in which case, I believe, and I'm going to ask the city attorney to weigh in, I believe that means the Planning Commission decision would stand and the project would be approved.
Correct, unless the appeal is affirmatively upheld, and there was not an affirmative vote of 3 to approve the project, it would just revert back to the Planning Commission decision, and the
Okay.
project would remain approved.
So that said, let me hop in here now, too. I share a lot of the frustrations. Obviously, I've been the minority vote up here. I was I want to go back and cover first a little bit of the history to address what Donna Westbrook brought up, because I was part of the party attempting to intervene on that lawsuit. Unfortunately, we had trusted the city council at the time to defend Prop A. Once we realized they were not going to do it, and we filed as outside parties on those 2 lawsuits, it was about a year into it, and Judge Moss ruled that we were not timely. So we did not get a chance to intervene, and then Judge Frazier, who had the action in front of him, he decided to rule that since we had, and I attended all the trials, and since we had 3 parties, Tenants United, versus City of Encinitas. We had Builder Industry Association of San Diego versus the City of Encinitas. All 3 of those parties were in agreement that they were at an impasse. We, the proponents of Prop A, and that's me as a private citizen, of course, did not believe that and would have argued that, but we could not get the legal standing to do so. So the judge made a one-time ruling that allowed the city to adopt a housing element without a Prop A vote, and which is what they did. And they, in essence, adopted something very similar to Proposition U that, as Sheila Cameron had pointed out, had been defeated by the public in a public vote. So that's how we got here. That's how the R30 residential overlay got put on top of the general commercial in this case, and so it's called an affordable housing overlay zone, and it is the zoning, like it or not. That's what the judicial relief gave them. So I'm just covering that. Let me go through my point too now. So against that backdrop, it is the zoning. It is what we have in front of us tonight. Little editorial from my part is that waivers and density bonus, Housing Accountability Act, are gutting our zoning laws, are ruining our community character, I think, and under parking projects. I voted consistently to support maintaining our parking levels. I've been outnumbered on Planning Commission and outnumbered up here on City Council too. We need to fight the state, as we talked during the campaign. We need either our legislative lobbying to be effective. We need to coordinate with other cities and mayors, which I plan to do. And we also need statewide initiatives like our neighborhood voices to pass. And so it's work. But we have been backed into a corner at this point, and looking at the case in front of us tonight, not about what I want to do in the future, not about what, I can't hit the brakes suddenly because there are all sorts of ramifications there. But what we got to do here tonight is consider the issue in front of us. And on the 2 points of law, the 2 points of the appeal, I'll start with the migratory birds. The appellant's point is now doubly covered, both by the migratory bird law and now by the agreement to put in a condition of approval. So I think that goes away. The 2 existing Torrey pines, you heard the evidence in front of us that it shows me conclusively they were planted after the grading in 1990 roughly, based on the 1987 plans that were then as-built, and I see the evidence in front of me. I can count the number of Torrey pines, so I don't doubt those were artificially planted. We heard from staff that it is the Native Plant Protection Code from the Department of Fish and Game that makes that difference between, I forget what the term you used was, artificially or planted?
Native plants.
Yeah, but native plants, but artificially planted, or you had a different term. But
Naturally occurring versus
naturally
not.
occurring. That's the phrase I'm looking for. And these clearly are not naturally occurring. We have evidence that they were absolutely planted there in large numbers. So it makes sense that a couple survived on this property. So I don't see either points of this appeal, unfortunately, being anything I can hang my hat on and go, yeah, we can hold this up and fight it. I don't see any other legal mechanism. I do want to mention parking. Well, I guess I did to a degree. I will always fight for more parking because we are actually seeing projects that were built 40 years ago are under-parked, and we've dropped below that number. And as I love to point out is, as we add more and more density, we're adding more and more cars. And then I cite the same Southern California area government study. They looked at mass transit ridership, but in particular, one of the things they looked at was car ownership. Car ownership in 2000 in the LA Orange County area was 1.7 cars per household. Between then and 15 years later, in 2015, it went up by 50%. Now 2.4 cars per household as of 2015. Their demographics and our demographics, very similar. So why would we expect less cars per household? But that's been the planning logic, I guess, and I'm using that almost in an oxymoron. I don't think that we're doing data-driven decisions. So, but tonight is not the battle. The battle is in Sacramento. The battle is in future laws we adopt here with a new council, and we'll go there. So, but tonight I have to, and I think I'll make a motion to deny the appeal. Was there anything else I need in that motion? I think we have a. I should look at staff. Is there a resolution we have in there already?
25-02.
Yeah, and that's
with the inclusion of the condition of approval, which is the inclusion of a condition of approval to memorialize the Migratory Bird Treaty Act and the California Fish and Game Code.
okay.
Is that correct, Anna?
I'll make a motion. I'll see if I get a second.
I just had a question. I actually wanted to circle back. I meant to ask this before. The question that Ruben posted in his audio file said the meeting was on December 11th. He got his receipt of the public notice on December 10th. I see here it was sent on 12/5. Who has confirmed 12/5? How do we have confirmation of that? Do we have a receipt or anything presented?
I'm sorry, not sure I understand your
I'm looking at the
question.
public notice. It says it was sent on 12/5. We have our witness, our appellant, are saying that they didn't receive the public notice of the day before. Asking for confirmation on how we know this was sent on the 5th.
So,
We have staff that is required to put the date on there when it gets mailed out. And
Okay.
so that's what that
So
stamp
it's through the
is.
city. We did this. Okay, perfect. Just, there's a number of ways to send out the public notice, and I just wanted to, okay,
Confirm that.
thank you. Just wanted to confirm with that since it was questioned.
Okay.
What is the ability to, so, because once we deny, if we deny the appeal, it's approved.
Yeah.
So what
It
is
actually is approved unless we affirmatively support the appeal.
Gotcha. And so what is the ability to delay the project start date? There's no,
I don't know of any mechanism that legally we can do it.
yeah, and it's just, again, you guys are going to hear me beat this dead horse. I just can't get past it. And I for what it is, if we're not going to sit here and take, I think it's almost, how do I say it? It's the arrogance of humankind to sit here and watch what's going on and to sit here and not take full accountability for what we have right here, right now, and stop and listen. Nature has spoken, and we do not outrun nature. Currently, we are looking at some serious issues that are happening, and our entire county was in danger this last week, outside the fire season.
Yeah.
That is absurd. We have a resident showing us that we are now in a drought season right now. Again, when do we stop and take a deep breath and make a real assessment of ourselves? When do we do it? When, after somebody dies?
I think nothing is precluding us from moving quickly ahead and addressing the.
I'm all for the long. I'm all for the long fight, but I'm not allowing. I'm not going to allow the short fight to be missed, and it's happening right now. It's literally happening. It's still burning in sections of LA. So when are we going to stop and do this? When it actually reaches our front
I don't
door?
think we stop. I think we get it done.
Again, you're talking to a lifelong fighter. You're not gonna miss a fight with me. I'm ready to fight for the whole damn way. But my point is, if we're not going to stop at the immediate understanding, when the emergency's at your front door, I've had engine fires in my F-18. You know, I've lived with real emergencies. I've been in martial law conductor, if you will, in foreign lands. I get when you stop and you take a breath as to what it is we have, and now's the time. We just lost a great dear friend on the bluff, and we, as a city, paid out. We're going to pay out regardless if we don't watch out. And right now, we're sitting at I think, a teetering moment. And I just want it to be on record that if it happens, I'm standing on the other side of making sure that we do this right now. Not then, not in the long fight. And the long fight's there. I'm into it for the long fight, Bruce. I'm into it for that too.
Good.
But we got to take a quick breath, and if we can delay it for 30 days, 60 days, whatever it is, to get our ducks in a row in our city to make sure everything is covered, I don't think that I think we're missing the moment,
I
period.
think we talk
I'll leave it there.
about due process up here often, and I think this is, both sides are afforded due process, and the applicant has certain rights of due process, and we have to stay within those bounds, and we can't violate the applicant's due process. We're here tonight because you can't violate the appellant's due process either, and so they have certain rights and they are occurring.
Well, let's just go back 4 years.
Let me finish. But we need to move ahead quickly on addressing the issue in the Palisades and how it might be applicable to Encinitas. And I'll commit, we will agendize this and we will do it. And I think we've all had discussions with staff already, and we need immediate discussion of any potential long-term fixes we need to do, and even short-term fixes, water supply, fire crews, fire equipment, evacuation routes, I completely agree, but I cannot connect it to a level that allows me to change the due process in front of me on this item tonight any more than I could connect it to the sewer or anything else. You know, they're separate items, and not to take away from the urgency or the importance of making sure we have a plan for fire evacuation and earthquake. Quite frankly, I'm looking for in the future that we would get our Public Health and Safety Commission working on this, gathering the input along with our
Correct.
input. Yeah, so I have to, in my mind, separate these two items. Doesn't mean I'm slowing down on the other, because we're working on
No,
it.
no,
I think
and that's-
we'll be public, we'll bring it to a public meeting, and we can talk about it.
Yeah, well, we talk about due process, you go back 4 years, where were we sitting? Or not quite 4 years, 3 years and 11 months, or whatever you want to call it right now.
Elections have consequences. And,
No, I get that. I'm talking about COVID. We're sitting here, and things change when emergencies happen. And we change our actions, we change due process. Due process, I'm not saying to not approve it. I'm just saying we delay it. And that's the difference, is we're not here to minimize the fact when things change, we change. And I just don't want to be stuck behind, we have to remember laws were made by humans, for humans. And so if we sit here and let the laws dictate how we operate in a safety environment, we've lost the narrative, man. We've gone wrong and not letting our good judgment and common sense dictate how we live here and now on January 15th, 2025. How we live here and now due to some other law that was written at some other time when there wasn't a Pacific Palisades fire. My family runs businesses right there on that beach. I'm affected by this. I get it. My father-in-law had to evacuate from Malibu north of there. This is the second time in 3 years. So I'm just trying to say, when do we actually just when? Do we have to wait for do we have to wait for somebody else from some other town, from somebody up north in the state to tell us that we have to put a mask on or do something? No. We make decisions now, and the safety is I just again, I'll leave it there. I'm ready for the long fight. I'm ready to do it. But my personal opinion is we delay until we have all of the research back from our staff, sound, with time to actually register it, and then we make adjustments, including stuff like some of these incentives. Power lines. Right now, they're saying power lines is what started this thing, or portions of it. Yep. How could the HCD sit here and tell us that we now have to let our citizens be at risk because of a developer is not willing to put power lines down for money, not for incentive of financial responsibility? It's absurd, and I get law. You know what? I'm not going to pretend I know law. I get that there's laws there to keep us safe and to keep us protected, but we as the humans and the ones in charge need to make those decisions on the other side where better judgment supersedes some law by some human that's not living in that moment, period. So that's where I'll leave it there, but I'm good.
Councilmember O'Hara, did you have? Oh, no, you don't have.
No, I'm in complete agreement with everything you said. And I go back to the fact that we inherit a lot of these fights. And we have to amass the toolkit brick by brick. A discussion like you're saying is one of those bricks. I think some of the work we've done with other projects in town that if you've worked hard on, Bruce has worked hard on, are bricks in this foundation we're building. Because we inherit a lot of these projects that I don't particularly like. And I don't like the fact that we're getting less trees so he can make more money.
Yeah.
That's all it's about, right?
No,
that's what it's generally about. And I'm speaking. Hold on. Let me finish up. That is generally the trade-off. Is this whole thing, and this is not about Mr. Grover at the moment. This is about, in general, the state mandate that you're getting at and what you want to go in against. We have to mass the tools, set the building blocks, help the staff get us together in this, and we have goals we're working towards in this. And one of those goals is to figure out how to get some of our local control back where we can and can't, eventually working with our neighborhood voices, other municipalities. I've spoken to other municipalities already about working together, getting that going. That is something we can do. Because of previous actions in the city, we are inheriting a project that may not have looked like this had we been in these seats. And because of that, we have to sit and look at what is in front of us. And I don't like it any more than you do. I think I was the first person in the city manager's office with this discussion about how can we mitigate due to this horror that has happened up 100 miles north of us that could happen here if we're not careful. I've been grateful that staff has acted diligently, that Josh and the fire chief has assured us of his plans and has come in and talked to us and has dedicated extra time to make sure that we are indeed going in the right direction with all of these things. And he's willing to go back and look at it. And so I think in this instance, we are working towards that. There is more we can do. And I think we start with that. I think your testimony of the importance of doing that is a great wake-up call for all of us. But I get back to, in this appeal, we have to look at what we're appealing, what the subject matter is. And that's where we end up having to decide this decision. And this decision is not whether we want to take on the state, whether we want to find a way to get local control back, which is really what we want to do. This decision is, has he checked all the appropriate means that need to be checked to build this one development. And again, I don't like it any more than you do.
It's again, I think we're missing the point that it's this is not. If let's just say again, this last week, we've had a number of locations surrounding us that have their power was shut off in the expectation of the same thing happening up north happening here. And if that was happening here right now, this conversation would be very different. By luck, it's not. We forget that we are small and we are nothing compared to Mother Nature. And what I'm trying to say is by luck, it didn't happen. We are ahead of it, thank God. Ramona had a fire start up. We actually had fires in San Diego County. So I just wonder where we would be in this conversation had the fires been there and having to basically delay and understand the emergency, because I think that we would have seen a different emergency response. As it is, with LA, we have reached capacity on our, like I've said, our hotels and our Airbnbs and all that stuff. It would be significantly more if that was Poway, if that was Ramona, if that was Julian, significantly. And in this conversation, it would just be glaringly obvious. And by dumbass luck, it wasn't us. And so for us to sit here and step beyond, you know, personally, I believe it's arrogant. It's for us to sit here and not see how we are exactly like them in every way, shape, and form of climate action and requirements. And so for us to overstep that, and it has nothing to do with going at the state. It does, because that's I do believe we go into the state. This is not about that. And if you guys haven't seen the human capital that it takes and watch people in the dying moment, you just don't get it. And it's just not okay to allow us to step past. And I'm not saying to not approve this project with delay or something of that nature. So if I could make a motion, if that's something I could do legally, with delay until we get our stuff, I'll approve it tonight with the understanding that we delay it so that we get our reports back from our city to make sure all of the stuff that we're approving isn't adding weight to a burdened system that we don't know. Because from the briefs I've gotten of the last couple of weeks from Public Works, IT, and the fire department, as somebody who has been in charge of these things, straight up, I don't feel confident as if I was the guy, the commander making the decision, which I have been, I would say, stop all. I had that authority at times. And so sitting here, I'm not saying that I have the authority to stop all because it's all five of us, or in this case tonight, 3. I'm just saying let's delay. and not, if I could approve it tonight with that kind of thing, but I don't know where the legal ramifications, that would be up to our city attorney to get to me. But the point is I don't know what that thing is, and if I don't have that, I'm in the mind just to delay it until then. But this doesn't mean that they're going to go run and try to, if they want to, sue us, but we have, I think, every right to delay for emergency and safety purposes. But that's my opinion,
And I think
I'll vote where I vote.
I have the same emotional desire, but my planning commission experience tells me we do not have the legal right, and we don't have any of the findings or any legal mechanism to do what you're asking.
But again, you keep taking it back to these appeals right now. I'm not talking about these appeals. I'm
but
talking
that-
about the current events, Bruce.
No.
Current events.
The thing in front of this body right now is the appeal and nothing else. The outside events.
How do you do that, though? How do you do that? Like, you guys,
You have to listen to me.
Yeah.
What we're considering tonight is whether or not to approve a denial of this, approve the appeal, which would deny the project. And we have to have a legal underpinning for what we do and why we do it. And you're connecting events in LA saying that this project is somehow we'd have to declare an emergency or something. I don't know how we could even get there legally. I don't know. I've seen enough of this that I know we would be on very tenuous legal ground, in my opinion, my layman opinion, but at least enough experience on planning commission, and that they're not connected. Furthermore, I plan to move forward with the very same analysis you plan to do, and the incremental difference of this one project going into construction immediately as opposed to 3 or 6 months or whatever you're anticipating is inconsequential compared to what we need to go analyze. And let's do both. Let's approve it, move forward, because that's what we have to do. This is not the end all, that's the tipping point or anything. Nobody has shown any evidence that it's connected to a tipping point in fire risk. I would maintain that the fire risk at this site alone is almost zero, of a wildfire type event. This is probably the most innocuous. Still, I think it is such a tenuous connection that
Sure.
I can't go there. I'm not going there tonight. I'm telling you. we
If
need
you
to call
lost
it-
your child to emergency response lacking, then you would have probably a different opinion. 1. 2, I'm not connecting it to LA. LA is the one that actually is burning. SDG&E, San Diego Gas and Electric, is the ones that turned off the powers in San Diego. The emergency was here. You understand that? It wasn't in LA. It was here. We just missed it. It wasn't in LA. It currently is burning in LA, and we should take it as a very glaring example as to what could happen here, which is why they shut the power down in San Diego County, not in LA, which they were trying to do. They shut it down here in San Diego. So we have an emergency. We had people out of power on purpose to try to mitigate the cause, which hopefully helped. But we were under emergency this last week. That's what I'm trying to say. It's part of the misconception that we weren't under emergency. We were, it just didn't happen. And because in Encinitas, our power didn't get shut down, we didn't feel the ideals of the emergency.
Just to clarify, if I can, SDG&E declared an emergency out in the backcountry, not here.
Sure.
The city of Encinitas did not declare any type of emergency, so we, if you're talking about us here making this decision, are not under an emergency condition for fire risk in San Diego County. That's the lack of connection to this project that why I can't make that.
Sure.
And so procedurally from here, I want to keep us moving here because it's 10 till 9. I made Mark, please. I made a motion. I haven't gotten a second. Two options here. Somebody can second, or we can have a substitute motion and go down that path. So procedurally, that's what I think we should do next.
Councilmember O'Hara did just second.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. So, and if we are lacking a substitute motion, then I would, is there any further discussion? Otherwise, I would call the question. And to be clear, the yes is to deny the appeal. So that, right, and allow the planning commission approval to stand. And so 2-1 means no action, correct? So the planning commission would stand. We could continue the discussion to see if we could get to, well, I guess, does it matter? I don't. Any advice from staff, from our parliamentarian on what we should do, if any more?
Well, if the motion failed, unless there's a further motion, then the appeal, because the motion failed, if there's no motion to uphold the appeal, then it reverts back to the planning commission, unless the city council wishes to continue the deliberation on the appeal. The public comment portion is closed. Continue the deliberation on the appeal to another date.
So a failure of the appeal goes back to the planning commission, or it just the
No,
planning
it
commission?
reverts back to the planning commission's decision.
Oh, okay.
The decision stands.
Yeah.
Right.
So lacking another motion, if there's any interest by the board to propose some other path, I would first let you have a chance to think and say.
We can further this, again, nothing's going to change. We can further this conversation to the other side of May, and that works for me. And once we get our report back from the city.
Okay.
So
with that, I think the action is that the planning commission approval stands. And if there's nothing else, then we'll close this item and move on to item 10B.
As just a point of order in the minutes, City Attorney, do we note that the Planning Commission approval stands based on the vote?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So can we move on now to the annual report on mitigation fees? Item 10B. Actually, does anybody need a break? You just want to power through? Power through. All for it.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. This item is the Mitigation Fee Act Annual Report for fiscal year 23-24. Some background on this report: the Mitigation Fee Act is part of the state government code that governs the establishment and administration of development impact fees. Some of these requirements include having separate funds for each fee to avoid commingling with other revenues, producing an annual report, making specific information available for each fund, and every 5 years make certain findings regarding unexpended fund balances. These reports need to be available to the public within 180 days after the last day of the fiscal year and brought to council at the next regularly scheduled meeting. The purpose of the development impact fees is to mitigate the impact of planned new development on city facilities and to maintain an acceptable level of public service as the city grows. Fees must have a specific use and reasonable relationship to development. These are defined in the impact fee studies. While cities are not required to have development impact fee programs, cities that choose to establish a program must follow state government code requirements. Encinitas collects 9 different fees in separate funds to mitigate impacts on parks, traffic, open space, and trails, community facilities like the library, fire protection such as the fire stations, and flood control. The completed report meets the annual reporting requirements, which are summarized on this slide. And with that, staff recommends council review and file the report to meet the state mandated requirements. And that concludes this presentation. We're open if you have questions.
Any questions, observations, or anything? I'll make a couple observations. One of the information requests I asked for was a 10-year history of the funds and what the contributions from each one of the different impact fees were. And I took your data that you gave me and I plotted it to look and see, and I looked out of the percentage in the last 10 years, did more come in the later years, mid-years, and it varied a little bit. There was one real anomaly in there, and that's the traffic mitigation fee. Generally runs 60 to 200,000, maybe 400,000. And then in 2020, it jumped up to $1 million traffic mitigation fees in 1 year and then back down. And that was almost half of the contribution, or maybe a third of the contribution over the last 10 years. Any idea where did all that traffic mitigation fee money come from in 2020? Any idea?
Yeah, not specifically. I don't know if we have our engineering director has any recollection of any major projects that occurred in 2020.
I mean, and the reason I was doing this, I was trying to understand, do we have like a temporary bump up in mitigation fees and impact fees that because of all the R30 projects? And I wanted to see that trend, and what should we expect as kind of our long term once we get through those projects? Do we expect to drop back down to a nominal level? Looking at the general trend, especially on park development, park acquisition fees, I noticed in the last year, maybe 2 years, they jumped up significantly. Where, if you look at park development fees, went from 100 to 200,000 a year to 450 in 2024 for development fees, and parkland acquisition fees went from the 200,000s up and down roughly to 761,000. So in both cases, last year, 2024, was the largest intake of fees. And I suspect that has to do with the R30 projects going through entitlement and now development, and even quite a few of them being occupied. So I thought it was interesting information to understand, and it has budget ramifications when we get together later this year to talk about budgets. So, any other questions? If not, I think that's really what I had. I got all my other questions answered in staff or by the emails afterwards. I appreciate those. So, and if not, this is a report and file, and so shall we report and file it? No motion necessary.
I just have a quick comment to re-examine these fees and increase them going forward. As a result of, I look at our uncommitted fund balance of $3,200,000 and change. And I look at what we have in our city coming down as far as needs, to one of Luke's points earlier, infrastructure, schools and more, and 3.2 doesn't really cover many of those for the impact that they have on our quality of life. And so I would love to see these fees increased in the future. I'd love to have that discussion happen. I think if we're going to mitigate, we actually have to have enough money to mitigate the changes that are created by that. And it's something we'd like to address. And I know we've spoke about that, and we're going to go forward with that, but I'd like to make sure that's followed through on.
Yeah, and it will be, because we're in the midst of, the previous council commissioned a impact fee study that will come back to us this year. So this council will get to review it, and we'll go through, and it was every one of these fees that were in the report. So we'll have a chance to discuss further actions at that point with a latest, greatest, up-to-date study.
That's correct. We'll be returning to the city council in the spring to present those findings. We're currently working with our consultant to update our mitigation fees based on future demand.
Cool. Okay, great. And if there are no other comments, we'll file this. Thank you. I loved the information. It was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, moving on now to item 11, informational items, which we have none. We have no, number 12, council-initiated items, and none of those. And then, so we'll go to 13, council member reports pursuant to AB 1234. Any reports on meetings you attended, or?
The only meeting I attended was the Sandag Losan meeting with yourself, Bruce. It was very informational on what the 16 different options are for the train route, either under or current status where it is in Del Mar. There's a number of options that take the train tunnel underneath Del Mar, and then a couple of options where they go around Del Mar and into Solana Beach. It was interesting to see how they were taking the input from the different agencies, ourselves, Solana Beach, Del Mar, and then the NCTD. Outside that, our votes, I think we're waiting to see the final report. I know that it's coming down shortly, but that's all I have to report. That's all I saw.
I attended the NCTD meeting. We spoke on the CEO's financial, his contract for the future year going forward. We set that, and then after that, we discussed a really interesting project in Vista where they are tying in their transit with their affordable housing to have it paid for through a number of series of grants, a number of opportunities through the cooperation of transit. Really interesting project, but that's really about it. The NCTD has a lot coming our way, and I think this was kind of their get to know everybody. We had a number of new members on the board, of course, and so they wanted everyone to ease their way into it, I think. So I look forward to having more robust reports from NCTD in the future.
Great. And this is the first time we're reporting since December 18th meeting, so there's quite a few meetings in here. I had 3. The Losan rail realignment, and it was actually it was a meeting to get feedback on the Losan rail realignment value analysis study. That's a mouthful. And as you named, I think the only option you left off the table, that was one of them, was under or aligned with I-5. Yeah. Yeah. And they're taking our feedback from that meeting, and they are going to come back at the Sandag board meeting on February 28th. So it's publicly available. We may see members of the audience out there. And then let's see, since then, I also attended the Sandag board meeting with Deputy Mayor Lyons, who was there attending for the County Water Authority. I was there as our representative. We selected new board leadership for 2025-2026. That's 2 years. Lisa Hebner, who's the mayor of Solana Beach, was elected chair. So that means we have a North County, I like to think of a small town North County coastal person as the chair of Sandag. And we have a new CEO in Mario Orsa. And then the other positions on the executive leadership, Joe LaCava, who is the San Diego City Council President and their D1 representative, was elected first vice chair. And Santee Mayor John Minto was selected second vice chair. So the majority of the meeting was consumed with a discussion of the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry project, and there was quite a bit of discussion of trying to connect some of the funding that will be generated by that. It's all self-funded, private-funded, or toll-funded. And portion of that goes back to Mexico, and there was some discussion, is there a way to apply that money or use that money or leverage that into having Mexico address the Tijuana River sewage issues? No, nothing definitive came out of it, but clearly it was an area of focus for quite a few municipalities, especially in the South County, although I think every North County city expressed concern and empathy. The last item I attended was what's called the City Selection Committee. This was something new to me. I didn't know mayors did this. It's a committee comprised of all the San Diego mayors. We met day before yesterday. The two items in front of us for this meeting was we selected candidates to fill expiring terms on LAFCO, which is the Local Area Formation Committee. And it wasn't even people, it's done regionally, and I won't go into all the details, but we did that. We also selected the Air Pollution Quality or Control Board, APCB representatives from each one of the county supervisorial districts. And we did that successfully in 4 out of the 5. In the 5th one, which is ours, it came down to a choice between Mayor John Duncan of Coronado and Councilmember Teresa de Acosta of Carlsbad, and it was a tie vote. And there was quite a bit of discussion on Robert's rules, but we ended up with a tie, and we're going to have another meeting to get past the tie. So that's my report. I thought it was an interesting meeting and something I didn't know about I thought I'd share. So with that, we will move on to city manager reports.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. So tonight we want to start with an update from our fire department. We do have 2 Encinitas fire personnel at the fires in LA. We have 1 fire line paramedic. We also have 1 technical specialist that's helping with search and rescue. So we wish them well. We want them to come back to us safe, and our thoughts and prayers go out to all the families that were affected, and also all of the firefighters, law enforcement, and everyone else that is there doing their best to console folks and to make things safe again. So our hearts really go out to them as well. Just as a reminder, we do have on our public safety page, we do have an item about emergency preparedness. So it does talk about evacuation plans, what to pack. We heard one of our residents tonight talk about that. We can't stress enough being prepared, and families need to make sure with small children, pets, our folks out in Alevinheim with large animals to have a plan. But we've got some really good information on our website as well, and we will continue to update folks on what they can do better. Also, from our Park, Rec, and Cultural Arts Department, we have started our Music by the Sea 2025 concert series with our San Diego Music Society. Tickets are on sale. You can get them on the website. They are selling out rather quickly. We have either 6 season pass or just regular passes. So if you are interested in hearing some world-class music over at the library, please look at our website for ticket information. And then lastly, over at the Encinitas Community Park, we put up several years ago, and actually there's a picture right behind everybody, we put up a beautiful shade sail to help with UV protection of our playground users. Those sails need to have regular maintenance, so they are going in for a deep cleaning and also any small hole repairs. But during that, the playground will be closed kind of intermittently when the contractor has to take them off or reinstall them, so for the safety of the children playing there. So that work's going to begin the week of February 5th, and there will be signage at the playground letting folks know when it will be closed and when it will be open. So that is my report for this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. City Attorney report.
Mr. Mayor, prior to my report, I'd request a 1-minute recess.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Mark, we're back.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Attorney report. The city attorney will do further research on the the majority vote issue, and report back to city council to confirm that that is the correct procedure.
And just to be clear, we want to find where in our code the 3 required for action is. For a positive,
Positive action.
positive action, that it requires 3 votes. We just want to clarify that may have some impact as far as the motion tonight included a small addition of a condition.
Correct.
And if we don't have 3, that condition doesn't mandatorily have to be added.
Right.
If we
It's a simple- it's a
take
simple
action
majority.
on 2,
Right.
2-1, then it would be passing and it would go. So, okay.
Correct.
So you'll clarify that before I can sign the actual resolution. I will get the outcome of that.
And we'll report back at the following meeting to clarify.
Very good. Okay. And with that, city clerk report?
Just a reminder that we are advertising for the annual recruitment for boards and commissions. This year, we kind of like an off year, so we only have the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission has scheduled vacancies, and then we do have 2 unscheduled vacancies on the Public Health and Safety Commission, and then we also have one on the, was it Parks and Recreation Commission that just came up.
And on the mobility, which, that's by region.
That's usually by region. The 2 that are up this year are the 2 at large.
Okay. And what's the deadline?
The deadline is next Thursday. This Thursday was the deadline for incumbents.
Okay. So, okay, so next Thursday is,
The
let's say,
23rd,
15th plus 8.
23rd.
23rd, okay. Great.
Is that deadline the same for the Parks and Rec opening too?
The Parks and Rec Commission, that one was a week later. But what I'm going to do is, when it comes forward to council for the consideration, I'll have all of them at the same time on the same meeting.
Okay, perfect.
And that's going to be in February.
That'll be in February,
Copy.
correct.
That we do the appointment, but the applications are due,
The applications are staggered just because the vacancy on the Park and Rec just came in.
Okay.
So I made that so it's the end of the month so that you could consider all the vacancies at one time.
okay. Great. And with that, I think we're adjourned. Okay, we're getting better. It was 10:50 last time, 9:15 this time. We're moving forward.